Love smarter, not harder. Today's question. Hi, Dr. Karin. Can you give your thoughts on premarital cohabitation? Is this something you think is helpful in helping a couple prepare for marriage? So the research I've come across actually doesn't support that it's a helpful next step between dating and marriage. And it's a very common assumption that it's a perfectly natural next step and that it will help you prevent any problems in marriage because you do this test drive, so to speak. So I'm going to refer to, my favorite researcher on how to date, which is Dr. Dwayna Welch in her book, Love Factually. She's been on my podcast in episode 92 and in episode 102. And then again to talk about breaking up and moving on. And she's done so much research on how to date. And as she calls it, high status. We want to take all the research that's out there, because there's a ton of it, and apply it to our dating practice. And she talks about this misperception, and she quotes a Gallup poll that says 62% of 20-somethings believe living together is a valid test drive to minimize divorce risk and enhance later wedded bliss. But the research doesn't bear this out whatsoever. And so I'll quote again from her book. She says, without firm marriage plans at move-in, science flatly disagrees with today's opinion of cohabiting as helpful. In preparing this chapter, I reviewed every science-based article and source I could find, ranging from the 1970s to the 2000s. And of more than 24, precisely 0 back up the current cultural support for cohabitation as insurance against divorce and misery. 0. She goes on to say that although a very few studies show no harm in cohabiting, that's only if the couple is already engaged when they move in. The rest of the studies find that living together is associated with less, never more, happiness in marriage, and the risk of divorce is higher, never lower, following a live-in. This trend is true not only in the US, but in every culture where cohabitation has been studied. So the findings from her meta-analysis are pretty strong, that even though the perception is it's a great next step and transition phase between dating and marriage, it doesn't pan out. And it concerns me for women in particular who are marriage-minded, and that is their goal, that what happens so often is women think, oh, this is just the next step toward marriage. But men often think, oh, this is just great because now I've got the comfort of having someone in my house and I don't really have to try so hard anymore, right? I don't have to take her out on dates. She's just there and she's cooking for me. And I get all the comforts of having someone around at all times, but without having to make that deep commitment. So I don't think it serves women. And clearly the research supports that it doesn't end up being a solid transition phase. So I hope that's helpful.